little bit different. So today, is it better to be to be a virtual assistant or a bookkeeper? Okay, so I think a lot of people really struggle because there's a lot of different online business models that a person could go through, and really understand like which one is the best business model is a really big challenge for a lot of people. So I want to kind of give you some information, kind of help you like really understand like some pros and cons of each one to see like which one potentially could be a better fit for you. Now personally for me, I have done my bookkeeping business since about 2015, and I've worked with a lot of virtual assistants. I think I've worked with about 9 virtual assistants for over a year, at one point in my career. So want to really kind of talk about the pros and cons, and which one I think is a better choice, just based on my experience and working with a lot of accountants, bookkeepers, and virtual assistants. So number one, if you're thinking about starting an online service business, let's compare two popular options: virtual assistants versus bookkeeping, and why one is clearly a better long-term choice. So both roles are going to offer flexibility and remote work, but one has a higher income potential and a long-term, like just better stability long term. So what do virtual assistants do? What do bookkeepers do? Now, generally, virtual assistants are going to handle a lot of like administrative tasks like email management, scheduling, social media post creation, customer service. It's a lot more widespread, the amount of tasks you can do. Really, it's like any feature or function that the business owner either does not want to do or just maybe doesn't have time to do themselves. The virtual assistant's basically there. You're basically a CEO of a business without necessarily getting the credit or the recognition for actually being like the CEO of the business, right? Now, a bookkeeper on the other hand manages more like financial records, tracking. They track income and expenses, prepare reports. They help businesses really manage their money and grow their business from a monetary perspective. So it's slightly more specialized around like finance and like helping people with money. Now, both have their support services, but bookkeeping is just going to focus more on like the higher value financial tasks in a lot of cases. Now it's kind of like the saying of like the jack of all trades versus master and master of none. So in a lot of cases with the virtual assistant, they can do a lot of stuff, but you don't really have to develop enough like a deep enough skill set in any one of those fields to really be considered an expert in them, which can be good for a virtual assistant because anytime your employer is like, hey, can you do this? Or hey, can you do this? Or hey, can you do this? You're like, yes, 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 yes. So it's very easy to kind of stack on more tasks and charge more money, but you're not gonna be able to charge as much money per task as like a bookkeeper would. So for example, VAs are generally going to charge between 15 to about $40 per hour. With some niches, could be earning more. Like if you start doing more like accounts receivable, or if you start doing more invoicing or even medical billing, you can start making more money, and there's gonna be a lot more work. Versus for bookkeeping, it's generally you're going to charge, usually for bookkeeping, you can charge like flat rates, same thing with virtual assistants, but the basic fee structure is going to break down to about 50 to $100 per hour, or in some cases more. Now, for both of these clients, many are going to be working on like a flat monthly retainer. Now, personally, in my experience, what I've seen is it's easier for a virtual assistant to get 40 hours per week worth of work than it would be for a bookkeeper. So you could, for example, let's say you get one client as a virtual assistant, and that one client is paying you like $40 per hour. And then after like the span of like a month and a half, you're doing what, $40 per hour times 40 hours a week times four, right? So you'll be able to get up to what, $6,400 a month pretty quickly, right? And then, but if you're already working 40 hours a week, you don't really have that much more capacity to do more and more and more stuff. Versus for a bookkeeper, you're probably not going to have that many clients that are going to need you for 40 hours per week, right? Or else they would really bring this person in house, and they would really be able to control their time better. So instead, what you're more getting is you're going to be getting more clients, and it's easier to kind of charge on a flat rate for that because then you can just start stacking. It's not really based on the amount of time that you spend. So it's a little bit easier to kind of get up to a higher price point for virtual assistants, but there's a very specific cap. Versus for bookkeeping, the cap is not quite does not quite hit you as fast, and the amount of money you can go past a little bit easier. So it's easier to make 10K per month as a bookkeeper than it is to be a virtual assistant, but it's easier to make 5K or 6K a month as a virtual assistant than a bookkeeper. So it just kind of depends on like what is what is kind of your game plan? Like, what do you want to do? Also, when it comes to bookkeeping, there's a lot more room that you can kind of scale into. You can start offering CFO services. You can start offering tax planning, consulting. Well, a lot of cases like VAs, like once you have all these different things, it's not like there's like a level two. Right. So, okay. So let's say it's like social media, right? So let's say you're managing the business under social media, like you're posting to YouTube or you're posting to their Facebook profile. In some cases, you could maybe advance your social media by actually writing the content pieces, whether it's writing out the YouTube script or actually writing the posts you're going to put on social media. But there's going to be a cap on how far you go. Like in a lot of cases, you're not going to be able to be the face of the business. Like if you're working for a law firm, for example, you could never be the person sitting in front of the camera. In a lot of cases, you might not know the law deep enough to write a good post. So it does come with like a cap. Versus with bookkeeping, it's like level one is bookkeeping. You're just doing the financial records. You're alerting business owners of different like expenses. You're kind of having conversation about like, do they mean to do it? Then you start moving up into like accounting services, which is like talking about like more proactive approaches. Then you're doing CFO services, which is like level three, which you're talking about, hey, based on my other clients, this is what I'm kind of seeing like industry standards and stuff like that. Then you can add on taxes, right? Then you can add on tax planning. So it's like there's a lot more levels of depth that you can go, and at every single level of depth there's like a multiplier on what you could charge. So a bookkeeper, let's say for example, could charge $500 per month for like a base level client. For accounting, you can charge probably $1,000 a month for base level. For CFO, you can charge $3,000 a month for base level, and then for tax planning you would charge like $5,000 to $10,000 for that, right? But the cool thing about the bookkeeping is you can stack all. So not only did you get the $500 per month, but now you're at $1,500 a month. You add level two. Now you're at $4,500 per month when you add a level three. Now you've added an additional $10,000 per year from that. So there's four levels of prices within one client that you can stack to as your skills improve. Okay. So next thing is gonna be like demand and job stability. Like which one is more secure? So one thing about being a virtual assistant is a lot of cases, unless like you have a very specialized skill set, and the business owner, like there's a physical reason why the business owner needs you. In a lot of cases, virtual assistants are doing a lot of like non-essential tasks, and since they're not essential, when like maybe there's a recession or like budgets tighten or whatever, a lot of times the virtual assistant's tasks are going to get cut out very quickly. So, for example, I wanted to cut some expenses one year, so I just like literally just said to my VA, "Hey, I'm gonna have you do probably about a third of what you're doing right now, because like this task we used to do is just no longer relevant. This is just no longer relevant. There's no point in you doing this. This doesn't even move the needle forward. I don't even know why we're paying you for this. Okay, so now we basically had her. She was doing like $1,200 a month, working I think a couple hours a day or whatever, to like literally like I think like $500 a month. And it's like it wasn't like mean or anything. It was just like there was a bunch of stuff that like just really didn't need to be done, but it was very discretionary, right? So you can, again, that's why you can make more money, but it's like you're always kind of like getting into this part that you to kind of like basically create job security for yourself as a virtual assistant. However, with like when it comes to like bookkeeping, it's actually a contra industry, meaning that whenever industries start going down or bad, generally going to need more of an accountant, right? So think about it. Whenever you have to pay taxes, right, you need an accountant. Whenever there's an audit, you need to have an accountant. Whenever like someone has stolen money from your company, you need an accountant. When there's a recession, you need to be able to have an accountant to make sure that your business is saved as much money as possible so it doesn't go out of business. So it's like the worse a company does, the more they need you and the more they're willing to pay, right? So it's like so you have like a really good baseline level of income, but then when things go bad, like past couple of days, the economy went really down for a couple of days, and then boom, that's when they would need you more. So you're gonna make more money when things are bad versus the virtual system when things are bad. Your income basically shrivels up to not very much, unless you can find a new person who then has a set of new needs that they think are important at the moment. That's how I'd really describe it. It's almost like for virtual assistant services, you're kind of it's very day to day, month to month kind of work. And it's like you're kind of like trying to make sure the business owner still sees the need or the importance of the service, but you know that as the business gets stronger and stronger, they're gonna need you less and less. Because the business owner is like usually with businesses, we're all about solving problems, right? Especially if you're an online business owner, the constant problem that you're solving is how can I do like what I'm doing now, or how can I make more money with less effort and less work? How can I get more leverage? So one of the things, like, the first thing is you're gonna be reducing stuff, right? So first thing is eliminate, then you delegate, sorry, eliminate, automate, delegate, right? So delegate's the last option. So a virtual assistant's like the delegation. I'm going to have this person do it. But that's after I've automated it. That's after I've eliminated it. So in a lot of cases, not only does it go from eliminate, automate, delegate, but sometimes it goes backwards from delegate. Then okay, this is I don't want to pay this much for this. Last year I had some virtual assistants making these short clips online for me. So like they would cut up my YouTube videos and they would like make them like into like 1 minute reels or whatever. But then there was this tool that came out that was $20 a month, and it did the same thing. It wasn't quite as good, but basically the same thing. $20 a month to automate this thing versus $1,200 a month for them to kind of make these clips. Which do you think I chose? I chose the $20 thing, right? Now you might be saying like, but Bryce, but like, don't businesses want to like, they tell me they're gonna work with me for the long haul if I work with them. Like, why would they be actively trying to replace me? It's like it's not that they're doing it maliciously. It's just this is like literally the nature of business. In a lot of cases, their CPA, right, is gonna be telling them to cut unnecessary expenses. So you're always kind of like battling against like the incumbent person who's also working with them, who has a little bit more trust in you. So. Next thing, workload and client retention. So again, VAs often are going to be working hourly inconsistent projects. I mean, like there's a lot more client turnover. It's kind of like we were talking about before. Like with bookkeeping, on average, your client's going to last with you for about 7.5 years. Kind of what the industry standard is for client retention. Virtual assistants, it's like you'd be really good if like sometimes you can work with like a client for years if like they're a very consistent business owner, but a lot of business owners are just so all over the place, you're gonna have a much higher turnover rate, which means like you'll like get a client, you do some work for them, you do like maybe a project, project ends, now there's turnover, and they like basically let you go, right? So due to that, again, it's easier to get to like 5,000 a month, but you're gonna have to constantly be rebuilding your $5,000 per month business to kind of maintain that stability. Versus for like bookkeeping, it's kind of like you work on these very predictable monthly retainers and you're creating recurring revenue and long-term client relationships. So it's easier to scale because I can spend $1 and then I go get like, let's say I get like one client that stays with me for like 2 years. Then I go spend another dollar, get another client for 2 years, and I just keep stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking. Versus, you build it, then it crashes, build, crash, build, crash, right? So next thing, the one thing that is a little bit tougher about bookkeeping than virtual assistants, that virtual assistanting, like you can generally, since there's so many different types of tasks, you can start it very easily. There's not much of a learning curve to start, but it will require constant learning of new tools as you have new tasks. Like there might be one day there might be a new software the business owner wants you to do or a new CRM. If you don't know what a CRM is, again, it's just really learning about different software, right? So that's the biggest thing. So you always have to be constantly like researching, like what does this term mean, or what is this kind of software, what is this kind of function, or what is this kind of resource. Versus with bookkeeping will have a steeper learning curve of like really understanding certain principles and but once you have it mastered, once you have a good enough like just satisfactory level, you don't have to keep learning new things like the same way. Like for example, for virtual assistants, there was a new software that we have. It's called Octopus. It basically looks at LinkedIn, can scrape, can take data from LinkedIn and put it on a spreadsheet. But then we used to use something called Social Dog. It's a little different. So like my virtual assistant has to keep learning. Whereas for bookkeeping, outside of maybe learning a couple of different things, you don't really learn that much new stuff. It's just on the job. You just keep doing it over and over again and get better at it. So one other thing too is that yeah, so the skills do not become obsolete. So it's like a lot more longevity is like more on the bookkeeping side. Speed is for virtual accounting, or sorry, virtual assistant is like speed. Bookkeeping is more longevity, right? So in terms of like affordable courses to like learn it, generally to learn bookkeeping, the course options are a lot vaster, and because like usually like they're teaching this stuff in school, and like they're trying to put a lot of people through the accounting space. There's a lot of like simplified training. You can get trained in like how to be a bookkeeper as far as like learning bookkeeping for anywhere between like $20 to like maybe $1,000. I probably would not pay more than about $500 on a course to learn bookkeeping. The only thing I would really spend money on for both of them is like really how to go and get the clients for them, how to price the stuff out, right? Because like to learn the bookkeeping skills, not that valuable. It's a lot of dime a dozen. To learn how to do the sales and the marketing element of it, that's the thing that 90% of people don't have. Okay. So final verdict is that bookkeeping is a better choice. Okay, you have a higher income potential. It's gonna be more stable and long term. Like the demand's just there longer term. Next, it's easier. It's easier to scale and retain clients. Okay, And then finally, the skills are going to hold long-term value. So you only need to learn the skills one time rather than constantly learning new things. So I always recommend do a bookkeeping business. That's why I stick with my bookkeeping business rather than just, start doing a bunch of like virtual assistant stuff. Now, and I did do both. I tried to do both at one point, right? But the bookkeeping is just so much easier. So if you're serious about building a high income business and maybe you want to really learn how to do a bookkeeping business yourself, and you want to say, hey, Bryce, I watched this video, I watched some of your other videos. I think that bookkeeping could be the right vehicle for me and my family. Go ahead and click the link inside the description, either above or below the video. Book a call with myself. Let's see if we can help you inside of our mentorship program. We're basically going to train you how to start a booking business from the ground up so you can have success as soon and as quickly as possible. Okay. Click the link, book the call. After you book the call, it's going to take you to a page like different like videos of people we've helped so you can get some inspiration and see what potentially is possible for yourself, even if you're new. Okay. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good rest of your day and take it easy.